Special good morning to everybody, wherever in this fine world you happen to be on this Lord's Day. And if you have your Bibles with me, I invite you to turn with me to Matthew chapter 24. Matthew chapter 24, as we are working through Matthew's Gospel, we, of course, are in the middle of Holy Week. He and his disciples and so many followers came marching into Jerusalem on Sunday, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, he's been preaching, he's been teaching, he has been healing, he's been doing all kinds of things, all aiming towards what? The crucifixion, which is going to be on Friday. So Matthew doesn't tell us exactly what day it is, but it is, everybody is in the midst of the biggest celebration of the entire year. And all of this centers in and around the temple and the surrounding grounds. And so, as we've noticed in the last couple chapters, Jesus comes down so hard on all of the religious leaders. All the people that are in charge, all the people that have power and authority, he just completely cuts them down. And again, when you realize that, you understand why it was they wanted him gone permanently, never to be seen again, and why he was in such danger, really from the first day of his ministry, because he was always as clear and open as he could be. But he just really lowers the boom on him in chapter 23. And so in chapter 24, after Jesus has lamented over Jerusalem and all that it has stood for historically, in verse 1, Jesus came out of the temple and was going away as he was. His disciples came to point out to him the buildings of the temple. Then he asked them, "You see all these, do you not? Truly, I tell you, not one stone will be left here upon another. All will be thrown down." Let me remind us that these people lived in houses made out of what? Dirt and rocks, and they would make bricks the best they could out of stuff. But it was like stucco, it was like mud or dirt. And then at the top, you would put sticks and branches of trees. If you had real good money, you would actually get a log and put across the top, fill that in, thatch it, put in mud on top of that for a top floor. And that was their, if you were driving around there in the first century, you'd go, this is a third world country. I mean, there's no running water, there's no electricity. It's just your mud, dirt walls, and this is where how most of the people live, and that's all they ever saw. And then you would walk for about a week to get to Jerusalem. Seeing Jerusalem would have been a life-changing experience for so many people. To see a city like this in the first century, but then when you saw the temple, and it's on a hillside. You can see pictures of the Dome of the Rock is today. This big, glorious temple is huge, the largest building that they would probably ever see, made out of shiny marble, and much of this temple covered with literal gold. So you go from living in a world of dirt to seeing the most brilliant thing, a true wonder of the ancient world. And they would look at this and say, there has never been anything that is built that is brilliant and amazing and as inspiring as this building. It was a testimony to the entire world. And I know that people stood in awe and probably wept when they saw this. It was the most glorious thing they could ever imagine. And looking at it, they'd say, there will never, ever be anything more glorious than this. For many of them, it was an act of worship simply to come and to be there. Again, a lot of them would not be allowed into the temple for a variety of different reasons. They weren't good enough according to the people in charge. And then from a distance, they would just be amazed at all this. And so this is what the disciples are saying. Jesus doesn't seem to be caught up in this the way we are. And he says, Jesus, check this out. Is this not the most amazing thing in the entire world? And what does he say? You see all these things, don't you? Truly, I tell you, honestly, not one stone will be left here upon another. All will be thrown down. You imagine bringing your best friend Independence Day, the 4th of July, into Washington, D.C., where I grew up. And there you come in seeing the Washington Monument, the Capitol Building, the White House, the Jefferson Memorial, and it's just a glorious thing. And your friend would go, you do realize all this is going to be crumbling down. Wait a minute, don't you understand Independence Day? We're supposed to be singing and shouting and doing fireworks and talking about here. We're the most glorious nation that's ever been. What do you mean it's all going to be torn down? It's all going to be gone? I think it just really threw them for a loop. When he was sitting on the Mount of Olives, now it's up on a hill, you go across a valley, and you come up on another hill, and sitting there where they often did, you could see the whole Temple Mount. You could see the temple in all of its glory. There it was. And it was just a place to watch all this. They're looking at this. And the disciples came to him privately. I always like this. You know when a teacher says things and it's always challenging and maybe a little confusing, but then you really got to figure out what in the world the teacher's talking about. But you wait till class is over and you go up till after the class because you don't want anyone to hear you ask the question, because you don't want to sound stupid or you're afraid of what the teacher is going to say. That's why Matthew is telling us this. Tell us, when will this be? What will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? What are they asking? Now, we've seen this numerous times already, leading up to this and also this week. Are they asking when the end times is going to be? No. What are they asking? We know you're going to start a revolution. We've got the army ready to go. We're simply waiting to hear the word for you to say, bring this to an end, throw out the bad guys who are in charge, put us in their place, and we can all live happily ever after. Everybody's waiting. We're armed. Literally, they're armed. We know this. Just give us the go. When are you going to tell us? Because, we may be a couple days or hours away from Passover. Perfect day. It's our Independence Day. If we're ever going to start a revolution, it would be this Friday. And we're all waiting, but you're not saying it. When are you going to do this, Jesus? And so he answers the question by saying something much more important than what they had in mind. The end of the age that they had known it. Jesus says, beware that no one leads you astray. For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Messiah. I am the anointed one. I'm the one that God has called to do all this. And they will lead many astray. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed. For this must take place, but the end is not yet. Any Sunday morning, probably any day of the week, you can pull up on TV somebody telling you about all the wars that are going on in the world, and you should be alarmed because it's all about to come to an end, but they forget what Jesus said. Go with what Jesus said. Okay? Yeah, be concerned about all the war, but this is not the end yet. For nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All this is but what? The beginning. It's just the beginning of the birth pangs and the pains that are about to come. Then they will hand you over to be tortured, and will put you to death, and you will be hated by all nations because of my name. Then many will fall away and they will betray one another and hate one another. And many false prophets will arise and lead many astray. And because of the increase of lawlessness, the love of many will grow cold. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. And this good news of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the world as a testimony to all the nations, and then the end will come. By the way, this is often referred to as the mini-apocalypse. In this extended passage, there's a lot of similarities between this and the book of Revelation, but it's kind of condensed down. So there's so much that we could look at here, but I'm really trying to highlight the important things. Again, when is this happening? And he's sitting there with his disciples looking at what? He tells us they're sitting on the Mount of Olives. They're all looking at what while they're doing this? They're looking at the temple. Beautiful this morning. I love driving here on Sunday morning. It's so beautiful. I like it because there's nobody hardly on the road, so it's my highway. And I look behind me, I'm about halfway here, and I see this old car. I'd already seen one older car. I don't know if there's a show going on today or what, but there's one goes the other way. And I looked and I said, boy, that looks like a Cadillac coming up behind me. A beautiful Cadillac. It's getting closer and closer, finally passes me, and it's beautiful, kind of a light blue gray, shiny, I'm going to guess 1970s vintage Cadillac. Just gorgeous. You know, back when cars were a work of art, they all look the same now. But back in those days, it was like, I remember you could look at a car and you could tell what year it was by, the style. And it was gorgeous. It was beautiful. And he passes me, and I enjoyed looking at it. And I thought, that's a beautiful, it's good that he's driving around. I get to look at that beautiful car. And so we're going on. What is that smell? And I go, is exhaust leaking into my car? I've had cars that had exhaust leaking into my car before, so I know how to be scared when I smell exhaust. And the further the car went, the less the smell was so strong. And it dawned on me what? Car was so beautiful on the outside, but there's something rotten on the inside. You can make something look so gorgeous, but when you really do some homework and get inside there, it ends up like the temple, the most beautiful thing you would ever see, but on the inside there was death and dying. But you had to do your homework to really know that in a way that Jesus is trying to get across to them. When are you going to do this? And he keeps bringing them back to, you do realize this age is coming to an end, but not in the way you think it is. You think we're going to come and be in charge of the temple and do it better than they did it, but the fact is, it's all of this is going to go away. But they're thinking, it's all we got. It's all there's ever going to be. All these people thought they knew who God was and how to do everything. But the disciples didn't know yet how to question the people that were the supposed experts. They were doing what you were supposed to do. The other day I was on, I could come up with a walking story every week. I probably almost do. And I'm walking down, and actually, I'm just like a block or two from 14th and Chestnut, now that I think about it. I'm really not in that part of Terre Haute. I'm walking along, and when you walk, especially if there's no sidewalks, you walk on what side of the street? Anybody? You walk on the left side. You ride your bicycle on the right side of the road, but you walk on the left side because you want to be able to see the cars are coming on, and they want to be able to see that's the side That will not be on the quiz. That's an extra. Okay. And I'll do it, especially if I walk on the side. But I'm walking on the left side, and I come to a stop sign, and traffic coming this way, and our direction has a right of way, but there's a stop sign right there. There's a pickup truck coming up here. I come and I stop, and the truck is coming up to the stop sign. You're the pedestrian. What do? You have the right of way. They've got a stop sign, and you're there first anyway. So what does Dwayne do?
Waits until it stops.
Yeah, I do not. If you know anything about me, I never step in front of vehicles, no matter what the traffic situation is. And I watched this fellow pulling up, and he's looking where? He doesn't even turn his head in my direction. He's looking to the left to see if anybody's coming. He doesn't even slow down. He just goes, no. I know what the rules are. I know what people are supposed to be doing, but I think I have a better idea of what true reality is. And so I do my homework. Kind of like I got in an argument one time with a friend about, I like to ride, I haven't done it in a while, but I used to ride my bicycle an awful lot. And it was a colleague at work, he did a lot of riding as well. And I told him I don't like riding on highways or places. I like roads that are out in the byways where there's no traffic, hardly at all. And he said, but you have the right to be on that road. The law says you have every right to be on that road. And my response was always, you know that, and I know that, but other people on the road do not. And I ride my bicycle in a real world where bad things happen, and some people try to follow rules, and a lot of people do not. And so I go with that. These people had not learned to do that with the temple yet. Without question, they would follow what they said, what they taught, and the temple took advantage of these people for generations, abused them for supposedly their own gain. Jesus talks about how this age is, and by the way, and I may say more about this at some point, but to really understand apocalyptic type literature, you need to understand that usually they are talking to a specific people at a specific time and place, but at the same time they're talking about people everywhere that are in similar situations, and then possibly towards something way down the line that we cannot quite see yet. So he is talking to us as well. This is why, of course, Matthew includes this for us to read at this time. Because even if we're not looking at the temple in the first century, we deal with the same kind of issues about spiritual authority. And the fact that when we stand before God someday, what are we going to say? Oh, well, my preacher said this, my teacher said that. Or the books that I read said this. And Jesus is going to look into our heart and say, would you tell me where your heart is at? What have you done with the spiritual gifts that I have given you? And not look to these others. Somebody was asking me recently about somebody was looking for a church to attend. And I said, you need look no further. This person doesn't live around here. And the issue was going from this church to that church. They like what this preacher said, but not everything. And this one really kind of scares this person. And that's been kind of what I thought. And I said, well, first of all, you got to remind yourselves that preachers are real people. They're more real than I wish you could know, but it is. We have we have bad habits. We drop the ball sometimes, but to be really on the ball with this, you need to realize that some preachers are total con men. or con women. And they are out to fleece everybody. And there's times I'd like to get up here and start a list of names of people on TV, radio, historically, and present day that are doing this. But I'm not going to get into that. But here Jesus is trying to warn, if you're going to let go of all this temple stuff and take responsibility for your own spiritual life, your relationship with God, who are you going to listen to? Where are you going to get your wisdom and your spiritual insight? And know that, and I told my friend, you could probably go to most any of these, there are exceptions, most of them, they're going to have something important to offer to you. But they're not going to have everything. And so it's like I've always encouraged, people that I've worked with, listen to others too. Read what other people have to say. It may be, the day may come, I may make a mistake. I know it sounds rather far-fetched, doesn't it? That I would get it wrong. But I will. I have and I will. And there are times when I'm going to need your spiritual help and guidance as much as anybody might need mine. Jesus is trying so hard to get them to see that they're real people. Remember, not too long ago, we were just looking at Nicodemus. He was a professional. And he comes to Jesus and goes, I don't get it. I totally don't get it. And I thought, wow, I wonder if I did that. If I got in the pulpit one morning, you know what? I just don't get it. I really don't get it. Would somebody please come up here and help me? Oh boy, what a service that would be like. We're going to take this off the internet for about 10 minutes now while we do something really special. But he's trying to get his disciples to spiritually grow up, and they didn't really want to do it. They looked at people as, you ever stop to think about the people you admire, the people that have it all? Was anybody watching football yesterday? No, nobody. I could really make up anything right now, couldn't I? I was flipping channels, and there it is. I spent the first year at the University of Tennessee, and I was in the band, and it took me back watching that at the stadium that they're in. I remember marching there and everything, and the uniforms, the band uniforms, are exactly the same as what we wore. What was that, like 75 years ago? I can't remember. Anyway, so back in time. We didn't have calendars in those days, so it's really hard to do. I had to do some carbon dating on those to find out how old they are. Anyway, so it really took me back. And I remember we were, I think we were at Auburn University. And the game, and what's really, if you ever have the opportunity to be right on the sidelines, we're getting ready to go out to march for halftime show, as I recall, and so we're right there. And I remember being able to; they were so close, and it's so impressive how violent football is, and you just don't get that on TV. But to be right there and to watch those people do what they do is it's really kind of frightening. And I remember there was the play where, let's see, I think it was the Tennessee team, they were punting the ball. And so Auburn players rush, and the punter, and one guy blocks the punt. He blocks it how? With his face. Okay? I don't know if you've ever been next to somebody who kicks a football that goes about 60 yards and that's high up in the ground. But he blocked it with his face. Now, I saw it. It was like right there. And I remember he blocked it, and there were other guys with him, and they were all so thrilled that they blocked it. And they were like, as they were leaving, they were like high-fiving each other kind of stuff and woohoo, jumping up and down. And the guy that blocked it, he's like, and I thought, did I just see him block that punt with his face? And then we found out later, he lost a couple teeth by blocking that. And I remember thinking, here he was getting all of this praise and adoration. He was the star of the show. Literally, probably 50,000 more people were just screaming his praises. And they had no idea how hurt he was at the time and how real a human being he happened to be. So really, Jesus is saying we need to open our eyes and start seeing what's really going on and maybe begin to appreciate what God is trying to do, not just through all this, but for us. And our whole perspective will begin to change about life and everything. Now, I'll finish with this story the other day. I got my favorite new restaurant, south of the border theme place. I'm not going to tell you the name of the place. I don't want to get into advertising. But if you ever do watch the Three Stooges, you'll hear the name of the restaurant. Anyway, you go through... Young people don't even know what the Three Stooges are. And you go into this lovely establishment, and it's kind of like a cafeteria line, kind of like Subway, where they make it for you. You can get your tacos, your burritos, and everything. Or you can also get a bowl, and they got these bowls that are this big. And of course we put out a bunch of rice for you and beans, and they've got stewed onions and green peppers you can put on there, mushrooms and cheese, and you can add different kinds of meat or tofu and lettuce and olives. And you cover it with olives, put sour cream over the whole thing so it looks like an ice cream sundae. And you got the bowl thing, and it just keeps piling up higher and higher. And I don't know that you're going to be able to get the lid on this work of art. It was glorious. And she goes, I think we'll be able to make this work. And it's just higher and higher. It's this big, it's this high, and it just sits, and it's just perfect. And they're so good, you're almost afraid to eat it. It looks so good. And it's so big, I take it home, and I get 4 meals out of this. Okay, literally 4 meals out of this, and so I get it home, and I eat about a fourth of it off of this, and I put the lid back on, and I take now I'm going to put this in the fridge, and I go to the fridge, and it's one of those dome things, and it fits really well, all it kind of snaps in place, and I've got it, and I put it it's in my left hand, and I grab the door of the fridge, and as I'm pulling on the door, what happens? The lid pops off, it goes down, and goes upside down. It flips upside, goes, boom, and it made a mess. I am not exaggerating. It was this big. I openly wept for about 20 minutes. And I thought, you know what? Let's go get a spatula. So I go and I get a spatula, and I check this out, and I go, okay, let's be clear about this. Most of it has not made contact with the floor. And so it's time for surgery. I got my scrubs on, I got the mask and everything, and we're very carefully salvaging what has not touched the floor. And I end up getting most of it back into the thing. Of course, it doesn't resemble what it originally started out. and I put that in the fridge, and I cried for another 20 minutes, and then I eventually got all that cleaned up. And after all this, I thought about this, and I say this to myself all the time. What a wonderful problem to have. I spilled my dinner. You see the people in the Ukraine whose lives have been devastated forever. You look at people in this country that don't have a place to live or food to eat or a safe place to live. And it just was a reminder to me of how fortunate I am that I can have a little accident like this, and that's the worst thing that's going to happen to me today. And so when I think about my life and our place in this world, and God says, I want you to look at my kingdom like this. I want you to look at people that maybe you have trusted and borderline worshiped your entire life. And it's now time for you to begin to see the world and Jesus' kingdom the way I want you to be. And then, and I really believe this, and I'm working at this, but the day will come when I will hear about war in the Ukraine. I will hear about all these other, the devastations of hurricanes and wildfires and whatnot, and be able to just thank God that He holds all this and time itself in the palm of His hand. And no matter how horrible this world can be, my trust is in Him. Heavenly Father, I feel like in many ways you're calling on us to spiritually grow up and to do what Jesus did, to think what He thought and to feel what He felt, but to know that more than ever before, and not just because somebody in a high and lifted up position said so, but because you did, that we belong to you, and for that we celebrate it and thank you again and again in Jesus' name. Amen. Let's all turn to our final hymn, which is number what? Somebody have that? 181. And I'll say goodbye to everyone else, wherever you may be. Have a great Lord's Day. I hope to see you soon. Bye for now.